Let's continue this conversation with Senator Kevin Cramer of North Dakota. Senator, a lot going on up there. You just heard. You heard our previous guest unloading on the anti-Americans who run Chicago and the America Last party that is the Democrat Party. But the GOP, too, is plagued with key America Last members after we learned that Joe Biden's FEMA withheld aid from victims of recent storms on the East Coast because they were supporters of Donald Trump. Joe Biden then goes off and pledges $1 billion of our taxpayer dollars to rebuild storm damage in Africa. Key members, Senator, of your party gave him our money to do that. Key members of your party voted to fund his open borders that led to massive overspending. You saw what's happening in Chicago, chaos and death for our own citizens. Can you understand why those people in your party are just as guilty as Democrats in unleashing hell on this country for 12 of the last 16 years?
Well, one of the things, Chris, that I think is really important for people to understand is that we haven't had the opportunity under Democrat control in the Congress, certainly in the Senate, to have appropriations bills that are, yes or no on those specific items, because Chuck Schumer has used his unilateral power to put all appropriations at the end of the year into one big bucket, so that if the things that you matter are in that bill, you have to weigh those things against things that matter less, and then it's not a binary choice. And therein, in my mind, lies the biggest problem that we have to fix going forward. And so far, it looks like we're going to be off to a good start, and that means regular order, regular appropriations process, votes on the floor for amendments in plain view of the American public through C-SPAN and other networks, hearings on all of these appropriations. That lack of transparency is what allows this sort of unilateral yes or no, up or down on large appropriations bills takes place. And that's not the way our system is supposed to be. So I think a lot of it has to do with the leadership in the Democratic Party, even for Republicans. If you're going to, for example, if you're going to vote for a pay raise for the military men and women who deserve a pay raise, it's coupled with all the same other crap that you're talking about. And a vote no is a vote against the pay raise. And that's why I think we have to get back to that more transparent, regular order that the American people once had in their Congress.
Oh, no. I agree with you, Senator. I think we got to get back to regular order. Of course, we've been promised since the Republicans took over the House that we would do that. They have failed to do that. And, I'm going to point you back to that $1.8 trillion omnibus. That was a Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell deal. Mitch McConnell purposely shivved the incoming Republican majority, tied their hands so they couldn't get any fiscal restraint. You and I both know there could have been a continuing resolution for just 3 months that would have allowed the Republicans to have a stronger negotiating power. But Mitch McConnell undermined Republicans, along with a certain number of senators, undermined Republicans to give the Democrats everything they wanted in a massive spending bill that, by the way, Senator, as you remember, there's a provision in that bill that prohibited money be used to stop illegal immigration with border barriers on that border, prohibited its use. That wasn't done by Democrats. That's Mitch McConnell. That's the Republican leader. So don't you need to address guys like him?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we need to have a Republican majority that can set that agenda so that they're confronted as Democrats with these up or down votes with our priorities at the helm. But believe me, I don't know a single Republican, including Mitch McConnell, that would support a bill that says prohibits any money from being used for a border restraint if that was a standalone bill. Again, you have when they do these things, and I agree that both leaders in both parties have become very accustomed to these big omnibus spending bills, which put members in very difficult positions with a binary choice about the entire budget rather than special pieces of it. I do think, and this is why new leadership going forward is so encouraging, and why when we just got the calendar today for 2025, let me just tell you, it's going to be a different Congress, because you're going to see us here Monday through Friday for weeks at a time until we get the Trump agenda passed out of the United States Congress.
Yeah. Well, praise God, Senator. I hope you're right, because you know how this governing by emergency. Amen. And Mitch McConnell has been the architect of this for the last 27 years. You put it right to the end of the year, and then they force guys like you to, here's the budget, here's the omnibus spending bill, and you got to vote on it after you've read it for like 20 minutes, and you got to vote on it. Look, let me get on to some other things. Historic landslide victory by the America First coalition. Many of your Senate colleagues now are pledging to join the Socialist Democrats and thwart some or all of President Trump's nominees. Mind you, many of those of your fellow colleagues, they tripped all over themselves to approve Joe Biden's incompetent, unqualified, and some of them just out-and-out freaks to high positions in government. Senator, big, unaccountable, constitutional and unconstitutional and unaffordable government lost in the last election. I say any Republican who opposes the America First appointees are declaring themselves allies of the Democrats and betraying their own voters. Where am I going wrong?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think we have to understand that there are about 1,200 appointees that will have to be confirmed by the United States Senate, and Joe Biden has a number of them with an entire Democrat Senate in his entire 4 years that have still not been confirmed. So the tension between the two bodies, if you will, the two co-equal branches, is not new. I don't know any Republican that plans on opposing all of the America First nominees. They're going to be taken up one at a time. I will tell you, as I look at the lineup going forward, starting with Pete Hegseth and all the way forward, I don't see a single one that I won't be supportive of, because to me, they do represent the America First agenda. They do represent what the American people have voted for. But at the same time, senators, as I always say, Chris, the Senate's made up of 99 people who think they should be president, and me. And so, you know, we each have our own constituency, our own philosophies, our own, I know. And so the reality is that we do have this obligation to not just be robots or rubber stamps, but we ought to always start with that's the agenda we need to be for. And if there are particular issues with a particular nominee, given where you live or, you know, given where you come from, okay, we can deal with that. But I think going forward, I see no reason to not support people like Kash Patel, for example, who, yes, a different perspective, but a different perspective was elected and overwhelmingly elected.
Yes.
And some of us were elected with that different perspective. And I think that's what we have to be responding to. Again, individual cases here and there, you know, where would the Republican Senate be without somebody like, say, a Susan Collins, who's the only Republican elected in New England anymore? But with 53 senators, Chris, what I'm optimistic about is 53 Republican senators and the Vice President of the United States. We have some room to give some of our members that come from different places that might have a situation here or there where they have to cast a safer vote, per se. But that should allow us to still get the Trump team through. And I'm optimistic about that, and I'm on board. And I think we have to do more of what you and I are doing right now. Talk about it in plain public.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And first off, Senator, God bless you for stating you're an America First supporter and how you're going to vote. But just for your own edification, Senator Lisa Murkowski has said she will not approve any of President Trump's nominees unless they go through a vetting process from an FBI that has shown that they have approved some they're corrupt. It's a corrupt organization, and they've approved people that have been very bad actors in our own government. So that's who I'm making reference to when I say that. Merry Christmas.
And you're right about that. I understand that. You're right about that. You're right about that.
Sir.
I think the DOJ is
Senator Kevin Cramer,
the most corrupt agency in the government, the most dangerous.
Indeed, sir. Have a Merry Christmas.